Okay? So we have stressed the importance of providing more funding for First Nation mandate universities and colleges, and not to provide funding to mainstream institutions unless they are First Nations led partnerships. So, you know, as the story goes all the time, they're saying they're allotting so much money for our First Nations people, but then they give it to a non-Indigenous entity, and they're supposed to carry it for us, right? So we have proposed a joint process for the development of regional and treaty-based models for post-secondary education in 3 phases. For this year, 2018-19, to have regional engagement to look at post-secondary policy options. So we'll have an engagement session to look into this. That's what we're trying to ascertain, get access to. And for next year, 2019-2020, is to have additional funding for post-secondary education and a joint development of an implementation plan. For the following year, in 2020 and 21, the implementation of regional and treaty-based approaches to post-secondary education, including more funding to support policy changes to better meet the needs of the First Nation post-secondary students. We also have a resolution entitled Manitoba First Nation Post-Secondary Strategy to direct the Manitoba First Nations Education Resource Center to work with First Nations First Nation education directors to develop a new Manitoba First Nations post-secondary strategy. And post-secondary strategy includes development of our own First Nations University College, and also helping First Nations to develop their own long-term post-secondary plans, so that each individual First Nation will get assistance to do this. But they develop how they want to develop the plan. Developing regional post-secondary training programs to meet community-identified needs. So that means we don't give up altogether on regional training plans either. Establishing a new regional post-secondary education table to respond to national developments. We have had a lot of interest from both education directors and chiefs who agree that we need a new post-secondary strategy. And I ask for your support for the resolution to develop a new Manitoba First Nations post-secondary strategy. So that's already drafted. And on the AFN national task teams, there's infrastructure. We know that that's a big deficiency. Our schools are overcrowded. And also the funding experts that we've engaged and tasked to do this work for us for analysis. At the national level, we have had 2 task teams established, one on infrastructure and the other is funding experts. For the infrastructure task team, we have Greg Halcrow, Education Director from Cross Lake, or Pimicikamak, attending the meetings to discuss our education infrastructure needs. We also have Charles Cochran from MFNRC, providing him with technical advice and support. As part of our normal processes for any national task teams, the information is taken to the education directors for their feedback and input. Some of the issues that the education directors have identified include better funding to meet health and safety standards, more funding to address the backlog of new schools, and we need more teacherages. We all know that story there. And more classrooms to meet the increasing number of students. Most of our schools are at full capacity, with many temporary classrooms in most of our community. More infrastructure for full-time nursery and kindergarten programs, and so on. So that's the infrastructure task team. They have had 2 meetings to date, and we expect there will be a more detailed report to the next Chiefs Assembly. The other new task team is the funding experts, and we have Davin Dumas, Education Director for Fisher River, and our physical expert, Steve Power, attending these meetings. This task team has been discussing the new funding arrangements across Canada and comparing where we're at in relation to other regions. We know that BC First Nations recently signed an agreement with Indigenous Services Canada for their new funding formula. We also have heard that several regions, including Manitoba, Quebec, and Nova Scotia, have developed new funding models based on years of research. So Manitoba is one of the regions that has conducted the most research on funding needs, formulas, models, and agreements. On the agenda later today, we will hear more about regional education funding models. So when we talk about, as well as Manitoba preparedness, how are we prepared to do this? I know that there are issues raised that are being considered by other regions, and by comparison, in BC, they use mostly enabling legislation, and it fits into the provincial government quite sometimes even dovetails with them, but they just argue at rates, right? They debate over rates. But there is another additional issue here that tends to scare the federal government, which is we always say we have a treaty right to access all forms of education. And I say that this is a brief report to you on what's been happening on education at the AFN Chiefs Committee. And I want to thank you for listening to me. I will say miigwech, egusani, and in Island dialect, thank you.
We'll go to microphone 14.
Bonjour. Bonjour. Hello. Testing.
Microphone 14, please.
Is that me? Testing. There you go. Thank you for your presentation, Chief Master Teacher, Educationer.
Not quite there.
And the only thing I'd like to recommend, add on before I forget, that's why I lift up my hand, is that the curriculum aspect of education. I know that Indian Affairs deleted all the Lord's Prayer in all the schools when they were devolved to us First Nations. Shortly after, they deleted the Lord's Prayer in all the schools in Canada. But I think we need some kind of prayer, whether it's traditional or Lord's Prayer in Soto. And I noticed that in the curriculum, you haven't made any form of informal kind of discussion regarding what our kids should be learning in school, whether it's calisthenics or a little bit of medicine or cooking or trapping, or the basic needs of just getting along with each other. Because I know that half of the stuff I learned in school, in residential school, never really was viable. Sure, it was good to learn geography and English and history, but it doesn't teach you how to communicate with your brother sitting beside you.
Okay, on that note, I guess this is where also we want that leeway to be able to determine ourselves what we want for individual schools, and that it's not dictated, and that we get resourced to develop our own curriculum, see what's important in your social, emotional well-being as well, and how we live as a community, as opposed to being individualistic and having a very elitist view of life, saying that you can climb to the top and that's yours and don't think about anybody else. We can't. That's not what we want to teach our kids. We want them to be caring and have a social conscience as well. So this is what we need to embed in our teachings as well. And also, I just wanted to state that my colleague there Nelson John Chief is also on languages. But when we were meeting with the minister and the research that's being done, we found out that, you know what, our counterparts in Francophone schools, emerging schools, we're getting about $8,000 more per student so that they can, you know, they don't lose their language and that they instruct them in the language, right? So we're asking for $1,500 right now, but I want to see, why don't you get $5,000 per student so that we can, I want to see if we can push that through the national table, and also, I think it's almost there, and also that we can instruct in our own languages if we choose to, and also have some efforts at language retention, because as you know, in the international political scenes, they say that a nation has a population, which is people, has territory, which is land, has its own customs, unique customs and way of doing things, including spirituality, and also its own unique language. So it's critical that we maintain that as well. So I just wanted to close off by saying that. If you have any more questions, I'll leave him here. And we have our experts there. What's his name there? Shirley and Lauren will send the people up here to ask the technical questions.
Thank you, Vice Chief Keeper, for your question. We'll go to microphone 29, Chief Hudson.
Good afternoon. I just want to thank you for your presentation, Chief McDougall, and through the briefing that has been provided. I just wanted to speak on the position, I guess, being taken as far as the MF-NERC is concerned regarding, it's the one statement here that MF-NERC, in response to the expressed need for post-secondary institution in Manitoba, I guess that's something that they want to look at undertaking. But I guess as far as, I just want to share some history involving Peguis First Nation in terms of delivering and administering post-secondary through our school board, through our education system. Going back, I guess in 1974, we were one of the first First Nations, along with Saugeen, to look at undertaking local control of education. But as part of that, in terms of moving forward, currently we have on the order of 380 plus students that are in post-secondary in various levels. And it's us that delivers and administers and manages those funds in terms of making the selections as far as students going off to post-secondary. But also we had a strategy in place in terms of creating our own technical vocational programs through our school. We have a school that was planned out over 3 phases, and both the first and second phase are in place in being able to deliver N to 12 programs, but also we also extended out to deliver post-secondary programs. And I think this year we have a business administration, nursing, etc. that's in partnership with some of the institutions throughout Manitoba, like Red River, UCN, you name it. We've partnered with many in the past, and one of the aspirations was, again, to create that technical vocational program, not only for the community of Peguis, but to look at capturing students throughout the region. And I find it troubling. I find it troubling that MF-NERC is taking that responsibility in terms of what is being proposed there. I'm not against MF-NERC in terms of what they do currently, but in terms of assuming assuming that control. I do have a problem with that because we have always maintained our treaty right to education. And we're asserting that. We're delivering the programs and services for our education, both on a secondary, primary, secondary, and even a post-secondary level. And I guess in this proposed briefing, not to include, you know, other independents that have control of their education, like SAGI. I know OCN has local control of their education. We need to be involved at that table, certainly at a provincial level, but also at a national level in terms of any exercise undertaking involving discussions around post-secondary. And I know at our last meeting that we had, working with the directors of education for all of our schools throughout Manitoba, I had to express this, and this is the place to do it, because we don't want to see, you know, our programs and services to be captured and consolidated under one umbrella. We can do it ourselves. We have been doing it since 1974. Why would we change that? And I think that's something that we need to capture in this proposed briefing, and also the practices that are being carried out at a provincial and national level, because I think it's important to maintain that treaty right to education, and handing it off to a service delivery organization, I don't think is something I want to see happen for the people of Peguis, because again, we've always had that control, and we're the ones that manage and deliver our services throughout our history in terms of local control, and we are going to continue that. So I just want to make that known and speak up, I guess, not only for myself in terms of dealing with this issue involving Peguis, but I'm sure other independent schools feel the same way. And I just wanted to make that known. Miigwech.
Thank you, Chief Hudson. We'll go to Mike for your comments. We'll go to Chief Henderson on microphone 15.
Miigwech, Chief Henderson from Saging. Thank you, Chief Hudson. I wanted to also reiterate the position of Saging also as an independent. I know I sit on part of the negotiating team with the chiefs in regards to going to Ottawa next week to talk about the education formula. You know, and I want to go back to the whole idea of the education as a treaty right. You know, that's got to be the basis for what we negotiate for on behalf of our children. You know, is that the right, that treaty right to education has to be the forefront. You know, it's not about taking the money that they give us, but we rightfully, our kids rightfully deserve what all Canadians get in Canada for education. You know, we shouldn't be second fiddle to the government of Canada, so it's very important, you know, that we talk education as a treaty right. You know, we hear about the land-based education, the language. There's been resolutions brought to the Chiefs table in regards to teaching our history in a grade 12 and a grade 11s as accredited course, not just teaching it as a course and get nothing for it, but recognizing it as a course, so that when our students graduate from all schools in Manitoba, that they are actually learning about our history and the sadness of the residential school era that our community members went through. So that's also very important. We're also talking about immersion programs for our communities. You know, we need to have our community members that can speak the language to start teaching our young people, you know, about our languages, because we're losing a lot of our elders in our communities, you know, and we need to try to capture that. The other thing is the whole issue of the post-secondary institutions. I know that there's one up north, the UCN. You know, we have certain programs in the south, and I can understand what Chief Hudson's talking about, you know, that the independents, you know, we have 7 independent communities in Manitoba, then they're the bigger communities. You know, we can do a lot of things on our own, you know, and it's very important that we recognize that we're being recognized, you know, and when we talk about that. And I speak on behalf of Sagkeeng at the Chiefs Assemblies, and there's no disrespect to any of the communities or the chiefs around the table that I speak for Sagkeeng. And when you do certain votes or resolutions that I have to either vote against or support, that's because that's what the community is asking for me as a chief and their leader in their community. I take the direction from the community, and that's who I speak for. So again, when I do, if I vote against something, it's because my community doesn't accept that, and that I'm speaking on behalf of them. But whatever other communities do, that's my respect to them also. You know, our community funds almost 200 kids a year also in post-secondary, and we're getting a lot of young people now coming back to our community that are educated and working in the school system. You know, we're taking a little bit of a different direction in my community, you know, and I'm so happy to see young people coming back that are educated and wanting to work in our community. Our new health director has been out of our community for 20 years. Our education director has been out of our community for 15 years. And she's got a master's degree in education. Our health director has worked with FINIB for 20 years. All these young people come back to work in my community. And that's what I'm working towards. You know, let's get those educated people back into our communities, give them those opportunities to work in those positions, because we've always been, you know, it's always been handed down to people. Here's a job. If you're not related to the chief, you don't get a job. You know, I have nothing to do with employment in Sagkeeng. My job is to be a politician. You know, and that's what I do, is politic for my community members. I don't do any hiring in Sagkeeng. That's not my job. I have an HR department that deals with all of that. You know, and I don't want to be involved in that because so much nepotism that goes on. So we need to address those issues. But I'm just thankful that I can be here at this table to talk about that. And our biggest commodities are children. Let's look after those children. Let's get them the best. You know, and I'm so happy I can sit at that table with the chiefs on education, because that's my background too. I was an educator for many years, you know, and working in different communities. So again, I say Jimmy Gwage for what we're doing. And no disrespect to MF-NURC, they're doing a great job in the 2nd and 3rd level services. My community, you know, still relies on them to come into my community, and they work with our teachers and our community members. So there's a reason why they're there, you know, and I support that. But I think when we start talking about certain things for our people, then we need to let the communities make those decisions for their communities. Miigwech.
Thank you, Chief Henderson. We'll go to microphone 3, Chief McDougall for a response.
Hello. Okay, I guess it's not so much just a comment on what's being said from Chief Hudson and Chief Henderson. You know, this, I guess this is proposed in the briefing note. It acknowledges that you know, it's going to be to assist for the communities to do what they want to do. That's the main intent. And of course, it respects each and every, like I said, the process respects each and every First Nation and their wishes and what they want to do. And if they want to go into a conglomerate, by all means, we'll assist. They'll assist to do that. And at the same time, like when we looked at the you know, partnership between Yellow Quill College and the MF-NURC training initiatives, you know, I just had 6, I call them young teachers graduate from post-baccalaureate you know, program being administered through MF-NURC, and it's something that we direly needed in my community, and I thank them for that. But until we can establish our own system, that's what MF-NURC's got to do. I mean, that's what I expect them to do. So, and they've done a great job. They've graduated 6 resource teachers, highly qualified resource teachers. So we have to also look at what's there for now, what we can do for now, but at the same time, not disrupt the initiatives from each community that, you know, that are going forward, and make sure that we have some form of communication, that doesn't happen, right? So, and we want to work together, or if the agreement is to back off for the time being, we want to develop our own thing, then so be it. But I think and I'm speaking for Lauren here, he's saying that I'll be there if you need me, and he's not saying, please don't need me. But he is going to mobilize his forces if we request that. So, and I don't think they've refused anybody yet, and it's up to the First Nations, right? So.
Thank you, Chief McDougall. We'll go back to microphone 29. Chief Hudson.
Yep. Yeah, no, I appreciate the comments, Chief McDougall, and certainly appreciate the comments from Chief Henderson. But I think what is being stated and what I'm stating is that we need to have involvement at that national table to know what is being discussed. Obviously, there's a pot of money there, and we have to be involved in terms of how that's determined, in terms of the administration and management of that, and how that's split up, because currently we do have funds that come to our school for those specific programs, and nothing against Yellow Quill. You know, both my children had graduated through Yellow Quill College, but it's not the only college that we work with. We work with Red River, we work with Assiniboine, we work with UCN in the north, University of Brandon, we work with the University of Winnipeg. And what I'm saying is that we have to be involved in terms of making determinations on how that money is shared. And if it's through MF-NERC with the First Nations that want to participate and certainly look at developing this college further, then so be it. But we also have our aspirations and need dollars to do that. So we need to be involved, is what I'm saying.
Thank you, Chief Hudson. Microphone 3.
Any more questions for Chief McDougall or anybody? Chief Henderson for supplement, mic 15.
I just wanted to make a comment in regards to MF-NERC and the program that they just graduated. We just graduated 65 special ed teachers in Manitoba last week. I was at the graduation ceremony, and that's part of the work that MF-NERC does, right? There's a need in our schools, and they did the initiative to get the University of Manitoba involved. So, and I was at that graduation. There were 65 Anishinaabe special ed teachers that graduated this past week in Winnipeg, and they're all from our communities here that are sitting on the table. So those chiefs and counselors, education people that are there that supported those students, what a wonderful ceremony. That's the first time ever in Canada they had a cohort program with the university that graduated that many people in their post-baccalaureate to get their special ed degrees. And those people are working in our schools now, so congratulations to all of our chiefs and councils here and the supporters. That was very good to see that, you know, all those people. 5 from Saugeen graduated that night from our community, so you know, I'm very proud of those people, and I was there to support that. And what a great job for our teachers to get their credentials to become special. Only our people know what our kids need, and I know special needs children need our people to work with them. So say kudos to MF-NERC and you know all of the council and leadership here that support those community members that came and graduated. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we're going to microphone 29 really quickly for supplement from Chief Hudson.
Yep. I just wanted to, you know, add, you know, mentioning graduates. We had a number of graduates of our own program, like I think it was 6 last fall in the business administration program that was delivered at Peguis, and we had something like 26 nurses that had graduated from our programs at Peguis alone. And when it comes down to the specialty programs, you know, obviously I think a lot of people are aware that we have trusts. We also want to look at developing, you know, trust programs for our trustees and up-and-coming people that want to get into that area of managing trusts and trust funds. You know, so there's some very specific programs that are needed and may not capture all the other First Nations, and that's the reasons why when we identify program needs as far as the community is concerned, and being the largest First Nation in Manitoba, that's very, very important for us. And just to share some of the numbers of our graduates, and that will continue under our management, our administration, and our program delivery. So I just wanted to share that with the circle here. Miigwech.
Miigwech, Chief Hudson. Is there any more questions, Chief? Okay, so one of the things I want to do in my closing comments, Chief, obviously that Chief Clear Sky, microphone 22.
Good afternoon. Just a quick comment. I too have a partnership in my education program. And I had its partnership now for probably going on 9 years. At the time I made the partnership, there was nothing really happening in the education field. Yes, we had MF-NERC, but someplace along the way kind of drifted. Excuse me. So anyway, I too is an independent community. We have just under 600 children in our school, and our partnership was with a school division. For our children to be educated is one of the reasons why I made the partnership. And also our teachers now are stable. You know, 50 or 5,000 per child. And then we have to be equivalent to 12 or whatever it is off reserve. It's not fair. It hasn't been fair for many, many years. We took over our own school division back in 81. You know, and from there we've been succeeding, but there's a lot of hoops and stuff to go through to get to where we are today. You know, I would be very much happy to see this 400 and some million that's supposed to come to our province or across Canada, wherever it's going to go. You know, I guess we all have to be in the same level here. You know, Frontier nailing the First Nations 20,000. You look in here; it's written in here, 20,000 per student. And then I come along and I try to get close to that. I can't. The highest I can get is 12.5 for our children at home. But anyway, just to share some of that information with you, that's where I'm at, and you know, and if it's going to happen, if it's going to be transferred to MF-NERC, I like to see the First Nations have some input, not bang, gone. No. Thank you.
Chief Bone, microphone 24.
Thank you. Just a few comments in reference to the reminder about treaty, I guess, and thank the table for using that terminology. You don't hear it too often when somebody talks about treaty, but because of treaty we got into a local control situation at KC. We've been in the business of running our school about almost 35 years, and during that time we've increased our graduation rate, even though that we have we feed into like a high school within Park West School Division, and we have more kids graduating as a result of the work we've done. But we're still at a place where we, I know somebody mentioned earlier about the lack of funding or for our schools, and we're in that situation, but we've made some attempts to change that for ourselves. We've been in the business of running our school ourselves, and we decided to join up with I think the new school process under FNERC, and that are alongside of FNERC, and I'm using the right terminology here, and just to work with a group to increase, I guess, the funding situations that we're finding, or lack of the funding that we've had within the community. Hopefully that'll succeed in terms of going forward. We're supportive that way. The other work that we've done is language work, and what we're, again, same thing, we're looking for money for the language to be taught in all the grades. So in our case, and it's interesting that in my community we now have Cree and Dakota people too. So I'm wondering now, we're going to have to provide language of all the 3 types of language in my community at the school. So that'll be a challenge to make sure that we can do that. We also are looking at more space. You know, recently just talking with the principal and looking at the numbers of in the next couple of years, we're looking at probably a couple more school classrooms that we're going to need. A recent thing that happened within my community last week, I think, was we had, because we send, some of our people have a school of choice, so they send their kids to the Strathclair Elementary School. And what happened there was on the way home, it was the end of last week, where the bus driver, after he dropped off all the non-native kids, stopped the bus and gave all of our children a damn good yelling at, you know, for whatever reason. So we're just doing an inquiry and investigation about that and see what was all going on with that, or why that was happening. So we'll fill you in more as we work on that aspect. But as a result, I think that I know some of our people, because of our own politics, internal politics, decide to send their kids outside of away from our own school. And but I see maybe they might change their minds over the next short while when they run into experiences of racism within the school divisions that are neighboring to us, where we send our kids. But the other thing was that I wanted to mention was the business about, and it was mentioned here, and again thanks to treaty, where we have begun a discussion, a challenging discussion for ourselves, or an approach with my reserve and partnering up with the other 8 reserves within which you referred to as Treaty 2 bands, and where we started to get together to look at the creation of an initiative on a large governance initiative where we could be in control of our whole region ourselves. And that's a challenge that we're into right now. One of the things that I wanted to mention was at that table we've passed a resolution to create a lawmaking council, not only of just chief and council, but members from our community right at the reserve, and also it's a combination of traditional people and hopefully many of our educated people we now have that'll participate with us in each of the reserves, to climb up to the region, to have a conversation there on developing a law on education, occupying that space. We've heard over the years that if you don't have your own law, then you'll have to use provincial legislation. So our attempt is to be able to take that step and say, all right, now we're going to have our own law on education. So that's a bit of a notice, I guess, I'm putting our helpers, giving a notice so that they're aware that we're working towards that level. When we look at our participation with the Manitoba First Nations Resource Centre, or even all the other education entities around us, we're not trying to take over any of their work. We're trying to get them to assist us to participate in the creation of, I guess, our own in-charge school division approach, under treaty. So I think that's the objective for us coming from the Keyscone and also the participants at the Treaty 2 table. So I wanted to mention that today when we're going forward, that we look at that way, that we create laws, not only just specifically just for each reserve, but the larger region that we all live in, as we create the law so that we can occupy that space, saying, okay, here's how we're going to govern our education program, so we don't continuously fall in the trap of just borrowing the legislation from the province. But I wanted to make those comments just as a brief in terms of, I guess, some work we're doing in our area, and with all the technical people that are assisting and shaping the documents that's got to go to the cabinet and all of that. I hope that they would include some of the comments I've made for there. So thank you very much.
Anybody else? Are we good? Chiefs? No resolutions? We're good? No. Shorty?
Yeah.
Okay. So Chiefs, in my final comments, what I just want to do is that since the election of the regional chief in July, as you know, I was re-elected, and I thank you again, Chiefs, for giving me that strong mandate as your regional chief at the national table. One of the things that was indicated by you as the chiefs, obviously, is reporting back to you as the chiefs and such. So I'm glad to say to you that since July, I have for you some reading material of my first quarter report that I'm going to be handing out to you as the chiefs. And in tab A, what we have there I'm just going to go over it real quick. It talks about the Rights Framework Initiative as well as a report that came out from September on the meeting that occurred in Gatineau. On tab number 2, we have regarding the Deschanel decision as well as the backgrounder there. On tab D, it says Indigenous Early Learning and Childcare Framework. Of course, you know, I created that portfolio 18 months ago. Since that time, a month ago, the federal government announced over $1 billion for early learning and childcare. Of that, at least $100 million or $1 billion is going to us as First Nations. For the Manitoba region, we're going to be receiving $100 million over the next 10 years for early learning and childcare. That's new money that was never brought into the region before when it comes to early learning and childcare. I have a thing that talks there. There's some briefing notes there from a speech that Minister Jody Wilson-Raybould gave in regards to the Rice Framework. I also have the summary report of the NRTA meeting on lands and resources that was held here in Winnipeg this past spring. I'd like to thank OCN for being the host and let Oneganu Sinclair that we appreciate OCN for hosting that meeting for us, Councillor Jeb. One thing that we have an order of business that I need to make a call out here is our NIB trustee, Tim Catchaway. He's up for reappointment, but at the ECC, it was done by a motion that a call will be made out for a new trustee for the National Indian Brotherhood for the Manitoba region. That call's going out on Friday, so I'm letting the chiefs know that. We also have some vacancies when it comes to economic development, as well as some of my other chiefs committees at the national table. So in the report, I'm going to be making that call out to you as the chiefs. I'm looking for chiefs to sit on various committees and that. Maybe some of our new chiefs, once you get reacquainted with offices and such. And one of the things that we did is we created a gender balance. So there's a lot of our women chiefs that sit on the national committees as well too. So I created a gender balance there for us to have equality, you know, given that, you know, our life givers and the protectors of our circles. Also, I have an update on the priorities for the fall 2018 parliamentary session. There's a report of the active litigation files that we have at the Assembly of First Nations. There is a report on the pre-budget submission that we did with the various ministers last month. That's in the document. And as well as there's a parliamentary relations update in regards to the recent cabinet shuffle and changes that occurred across Canada. There's new ministers that have been appointed. There's new parliamentary secretaries that have been appointed as well. Our most senior minister again in the region would be Minister Carr. And our most senior parliamentary secretary that we have right now would be Mr. Dan Vandel, who works under Minister Philpott's office. And that report's in there. There's also a report on Deschanel in regards to band membership and First Nation citizenship here. This is a very important report that I asked the chiefs to go over. I'll be handing that out shortly. On tab 5, and one of the reports that we're doing obviously here when we talk about child welfare on Thursday, there's a report in regards to child welfare and what's happening at our National Advisory Council, as well as with our legislative working group, and for myself as a national portfolio holder on child welfare and social development. There's an update for you guys as well as what we're doing when it comes to the proposed language of drafting legislation in regards to child welfare. That alone, we know that the AMC has been working on their separate approach from the Manitoba region. That's very unique. And as your national portfolio holder, Manitoba is the only region in Canada that has their own separate MOU when it comes to child welfare with Canada. So that's the first of its kind. So I just wanted to reiterate that. And there's various reports there for you chiefs. As well, there's a report in regards to the Jordan's Principle National Summit that was just recently held in Winnipeg. And as your national portfolio holder, I'm proud to tell you that we had 866 delegates at the Jordan's Principle National Summit. We turned away close to 500 people. So it showed how much demand that we had in regards to the Jordan's Principle and the information that's needed out there. So that report's in there for you as chiefs. as well as we just went over the report on education from Chief McDougall. That's in the binder as well. I also have some issues updates for you chiefs that's very important. You've asked for an issues update in regards to the O&M policy. That is in the book. There's an issues update on health and wellness, as well as a report on the social development working group and such. There's an update there with fisheries, and I'd just like to acknowledge Chief Catchaway and Chief Turner, who sit on our fisheries chiefs committees and the work that they're doing there. One of the things that they did for you as chiefs from the respected communities, I know that there's interest, you know, from Pimachikamak and Norway House and cetera, who have fishermen associations and that. I'm proud to tell you that, you know, Chief Catchaway and Chief Harold Turner have brought forward that inland fisheries argument that we've always had. And you know, right now, Chief Catchaway has been fighting with litigation in his First Nation regarding just the payment of his fishermen for the work that they've done, and that's been ongoing, that we've been supporting him on. So there's a lot of work. I want to commend Chief Catchaway and Chief Turner for that work they're doing. Also on the environment, there's an issues update there. First Nations languages, you know, Chief and I just gave our report. So this is the document that I'm having for you as chiefs. I know that you're going to have some reading material for my report here coming out. I'll be handing this out very shortly. That's the report that I have to you as the chiefs in assembly on the CCOE, as well as my activities as your regional chief. So thank you, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you very much, Regional Chief. It's been a bit of a long day for the leadership. We're going to
clarification.
Let Kevin speak.
Just quickly, there's electronic copies of this report that will be available. We have enough copies here just for the chiefs here, and anybody else that needs a copy, just give it to me and we'll provide the electronic copies of the report as well. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much once again, Regional Chief. What we're going to do is, on the presenters have been asked, the AMC Chiefs Committee on Education report we'll do first thing in the morning, along with the Regional Education Funding Model Negotiations report. We'll do those. We're going to table those to tomorrow morning. Before you leave, though, we do have one more item to take care of, and I'm going to ask a very important issue where communities are suffering right now because there's a missing person in their community. They've been looking, and they're still looking, and I'm going to turn it over to Chief Catchaway. And while he's on the microphone, I'm going to ask this young lad in the red shirt, the one waving at you there, he's going to come here with a little red bag, and we're going to ask you to provide some support for those communities financially. Thank you. Chief Catchaway on microphone 23.
Good afternoon, Chief Catchaway, Scownin. First of all, I want to acknowledge Chief Moody, Treaty 5. Acknowledge the prayer that was said this morning, and also the drum. I want to also acknowledge the Grand Chief, Regional Chief, and SCO Chief, and MKO Chief. As you know, we've been searching for the last month now for our young lad that's been missing for quite some time, and it's very disheartening and sad for the family, you know, to locate this individual and to bring him home. You know, for me, I want to acknowledge, you know, all the support, you know, throughout Manitoba that is giving to this family, and I want to thank, you know, Evan Flo, where the search is happening, and also, you know, I just give my heart to this family that's want to bring closure, and very sad, and I asked the AMC staff to coordinate, donation, amongst the chiefs, leadership that are around the table to give what they can. Everything, you know, is costly, and there's no help from ANSI, INAC, you know, to contribute anything, and that really breaks my heart, you know. You know, as a small community of my community, you know, we are doing what we can to provide for this family, and it's ongoing. Every day they're out there, you know, they're on their hands and knees, you know, a few days ago, they located, some human bones, but unfortunately it wasn't what they were looking for. It was the RCMP notified there were bones that were at least 50 years and older, and still, they located some human bones, and it's disheartening to see that. When you have members crying each day, it's takes a toll. And I just want to commend Garden Hill. They sent some searchers. I believe Cross Lake is sending a team this weekend, and I just want to thank all of Manitoba for coming together. When there's a loved one out there that's missing, that we do care. And with that I say, Gachimi-Gwech, listening, to the discussions around the table as well. Having it in camera, I kind of feel bad for the elders and the staff that had to step out. Small solutions turn into big solutions that could have been easily identified within a half an hour or even 15 minutes, if we allowed the Grand Chief to speak his piece, on this fiber optic. For me, to not support the fiber optic, I really do, but, Scounan is not even on the list, so I mean, I commend all the other communities that are involved, but, as a Treaty 2 chief, all the extractions in Treaty 2 territory, we're going to send a bill to Canada on what they owe us under Treaty 2. Minerals, extractions, everything. We don't owe the government nothing, they owe us. The government of Manitoba should have been having a fiber optic right across Manitoba for emergency purposes. We have people that are stranded out in the wilderness that don't even have access to a phone and so on. So I mean, I don't even know why we're even talking about fiber optic. It should be in Manitoba, right across Manitoba. So I mean, I acknowledge the Grand Chief, regardless who's your leader, coming down from AFN, SCO, AMC, MKO, there's always opposition, on the work that they do, and meanwhile they're elected. I mean, let's show some respect for our leadership. It's happening right from our home communities, where we're backstabbed, where we're not liked, and meanwhile we're elected. They should at least respect the leadership around the table. And I want to acknowledge the staff for the hard work and dedication they do, for all organizations. And there's so much, I mean, it's an ongoing issue, an ongoing battle, but it's the battle with their own people that they too have to respect the leadership. And with that, I'll take home whatever you donate, and I'll let the family know it's from the the chiefs and the elders and whoever attended the gathering here in Thompson, that we take home something. At least they could buy flour, provide gas, whatever they need, that will help. And from the bottom of my heart, I say Gachimi-Gwech, and with that, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chief Kachowi. Chief Desiree, number 18.
Good afternoon. Chief Wayne Desjarl, 7th Blue First Nation. There's a young gentleman that Chief Kachowi is talking about. I know he was last seen in our community. And our community, I guess our hearts ache because of this happening in our community. I didn't know the boy myself, but it doesn't matter which community the boy comes from, or anybody comes from. As First Nations, we're always there as a team, and we work together. And I welcome anybody else that wants to come in our community and help with the search. And we have a lot of community members that join with the people that have lost this young man, and on a daily basis. We have people on horses, four-wheelers, walking, crawling, whatever they have to do. But I think it's important that if anybody else wants to come and join in our community, you're more than welcome. You know, we have a few thousand people living in our community, but that's still not enough. That we need more help, and you know, the snow's going to be falling soon, and out there in our community, it came and then melted again, but maybe there's a reason for that. And also, I would like to invite anybody else from the different communities, different First Nations, to maybe light a fire for 4 days for this young man, and anybody else that has you know, problems in their community. You know, if we come together, lighting fires in our communities, you know, the spirits are going to hear us, and you know, they're going to see what's happening, and you know, that's the only way it's going to work, is if we come together and as a First Nations people. And with that, I'd like to say Jimmy Wetch. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And once again, Chief Katchoy, some people indicated that they'll be providing some more or some other support tomorrow financially. And with that, we thank the chiefs and proxies and staff for their dedication to hold today, and also want to encourage support for the communities that are searching for their loved one. I know the feeling, having a family member missing out there, because our brother has been out there for 14 years. So I always try to support the other families when it happens to them also. Grand Chief?
Okay, Chief, just quickly, I just wanted to share a quick story with you, and I want to acknowledge one of my elders from back home. If I could get Elder Teresa Biggity to stand up. It's from Matthias Cologne Cree Nation. Hello. So Elder Biggity, she runs a culture camp back home. You know, we were talking about language, talking about, you know, invigorating our language, prayer, and all these things. So she runs a camp, and she teaches the kids how to camp, how to make fire, you know, how to pray, and all these stuff. And she was busy one day, and I won't name the brother, but one of my brothers was there, and she goes, "Oh, ninanigisin kita." She said, "Hurry up, teach the kids a prayer," because she had to take off. So then my brother goes, "Okay, little kids." He gathers the little kids up, and he closes his eyes, his hands in the air. Oh, we gotta thank the Creator, and we gotta pray for the birds, and we gotta, you know, on and on, just a long, beautiful prayer. And then he looks at the little kids, and they're all little, and he goes to this little girl, "Did you like that prayer?" She goes, "Yeah." And she goes, "Well, here, you pray." And the little girl looks at him and goes, "No, my brother came and said, "Oh, I felt so ashamed of myself." He said, the little girl knew how to pray better than him. So it was it, Chiefs. Now, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your dedication today. We'll continue on, and we'll move on the deliberations of the discussions. So enjoy your evening, and we'll start first thing in the morning, 8 a.m.
Registration at 8 a.m. and now we should be starting at 9 sharp. Check.
Yeah, so just leave your stuff here where you're sitting, and it should be fine. Well, it will be fine. Just you can leave your stuff here. We'll continue tomorrow morning, and as Shorty mentioned, registration is at 8 a.m. tomorrow, and we'll do the recap of today's agenda and look over tomorrow's agenda at 8:45, and we'll get to the tabled items at 9 a.m.
Hi, Harry. Good, thank you. Yeah, I'm still in Thompson. I'll be back on Thursday evening. Yeah, I was back to Friday morning. I'm busy all week, so I'm going to travel all over the place. So. Okay. I'll give you a call later. I'll give you a call.
So, check. So, check.
I'll give you a call within an hour.
I think he's driving.
Sure. Half hour? 5 to 5? Text me. Okay.
Where are you staying? Oh, that's right. My right is a truck. So, what's up?
Favor, throw this in my, it's right in the front there. I'm going to shut off my car. I'll need this trip. Yeah. See you in the morning, yeah.
Yeah, just down the way here, eh? Yeah. Oh, I know it's bad.
It's right in the front there.
Yeah, I know.
Over here this morning,
Here in town? Oh. Yeah, you better get some Advil or something. Need something stronger than that or what? Aleve, yeah. That's naproxen, right? Yeah. That's naproxen. See, mine has a tub and a shower. And it has those jets.
Get a minute.
I don't know. I got the last one, but I didn't rate the size, so that's probably why they're not in there. Oh, no tub?
Have a seat.
That's what you
I was texting you there. Oh, was I missing something or did I miss something? Yeah, but you must have to talk about that. Like if I ever
that approximately, yeah, because it's bad to
yeah, right. Okay.
apparently like the normal process is that they go through it, they just go through the process of reviewing it, and then they get them sent out early next week. So were you asking like yeah.
That's why I said that. I'm not the job for going. That's my job.
Oh, I see.
I can hear that with some.
Okay, I see. So, so what you're saying is the written motion before the voting on it is not the resolution.